technology, teachers asking for help with different items. And so last year, I just sort of started brainstorming. How could we make this work? What could we do? How could we meet the needs of teachers without further burdening everyone? And so I kind of came up with this idea that I call bite-sized PD. And basically, it served many purposes. One, of course, meeting the growth needs of our teachers, giving some practical skills-based trainings, seeking teacher input to kind of fuel and run that, if you will. I wanted very small, manageable sessions because anything I've ever heard from my teachers, and quite frankly, that I felt myself, if I go spend time at a conference or training or professional development, I want something that I can take back and use that's applicable to what I'm doing. So this bite-sized PD was definitely not directed at deep pedagogy or um, uh, deep thought that needed a lot of time. I wanted it to be short and manageable so that teachers could feel like they could come, they could learn something, and then they could immediately use it and apply it. I also am constantly looking for ways to develop leadership, to develop teachers in my building, to highlight teachers who already show sort of mastery, if you will, in different areas. And everybody is really good at something. And because of the constraints of being in your own classroom, even when we try to allow for peer observations and such, teachers don't get to see the other teachers in the building as much and to really appreciate those things. And so this was another venue, if you will, that I could utilize staff in my own building to help build each other up. So this kind of started with teachers offering opportunities, whether we got the ideas from walkthrough observations conducted in the building, professional growth plans for teachers, teachers asking for specific things. So we lined this out and decided to meet once a week. This is completely voluntary for staff. It is not mandatory. And I've actually been delighted that probably at least half of my staff are taking advantage of this on a regular basis. I have about 35 full-time teachers in my building, and anywhere from probably 10 to 15 come on on a Wednesday. And they get to pick it. And I think that's something that's really important. You know, we talk a lot about student voice. I think it's also important to remember educator voice, to give our teachers the opportunity to have input into their own development and their own growth and learning. So the topics for this, I started um, with a survey, and the topics came again from a variety of places. Um, and it was a simple Google form. I had input from the teachers. I allowed them to rank the different topics because I want if 20 people were saying that this was a real high need for them and they wanted it, I wanted to prioritize that and have that offering earlier in the school year than something that maybe only a handful of people were interested in. Then I set a schedule and then I developed the courses. So we're going to talk through that here in just a second. And I want to encourage you. I'm kind of a standalone in my own school. Some of you have multiple schools in your county, multiple elementary schools or multiple middle schools. It could be whatever you dream it to be. It could be something in a setting like what we're doing today. Maybe you want to partner with another leader of another school and share some of these ideas, share offerings. I know as a public school district, when I taught, the district had a lot of influence and organization of your bigger professional development days. And again, so this is thinking more smaller, what the needs are of your staff and in your building. But there's nothing that says that you couldn't partner with somebody else to offer more. And I love the idea that I'm able to differentiate. I know all of us have sat in a meeting where we felt like we wasted our time. I don't want to waste my teacher's time. I want them to feel like I'm valuing their time. And if they're going to give up 45 minutes to an hour after school one day, I want it to be something that's rich, applicable, and something that they're going to walk away thinking, that's something I can do. That's something I can use. So the topics kind of were broken up for us, technology and technology integration, parent communication and engagement, instructional strategies, some that are content based, although that's not as much our focus there because more of that's on our professional development days. Our integration of biblical worldview, that could be anything applicable to your school. And then even our student info system, like facets of, we use facts. I know you all use Infinite Campus, but would be similar in nature. And so then we took the survey, we got all the results back, we ranked, prioritized, and then we started setting a schedule. And I have probably 5 or 6 teachers who are um, really good at putting together teaching and leading sessions. And so I reached out to them as well as some of my admin staff, and we built a calendar. And I shared that calendar. We did this all at the beginning of school with the intent of starting after Labor Day. And so every Wednesday afternoon, that's when we picked that what seemed to work best for our school. Every Wednesday afternoon, we offer the bite-sized PD session, and teachers have a link to the calendar for the whole year in my hub. And so I also offered an incentive that if they came to 8 sessions throughout the year, then on a PD day that we have scheduled later in the spring, they could opt out of that professional development day because they would have completed that amount of time already. And so that gave them kind of the steering wheel, so to speak, on some of the training and learning that they needed this year. Um, I tried to be conscientious to offer the topic, who was leading the session, as well as what the ultimate goal of the session was. And again, we tried to be very conscientious of the time factor, not wanting to go over. And so we've tried to really limit the time with how we developed our courses. So we looked again at first, who are my innovators in my building? Who are the people that are always kind of those early adopters, the people who are looking for things and making things and doing things. And I hear other teachers say, I wish I knew how to do that. And I just don't feel like I have time to learn how to do that or how to implement that. And so we've really been able to kind of hone in on who those people are in our building and give them an opportunity to grow as leaders as well. Certainly, part of what we do as the leadership of our school is that we're looking to recruit people ultimately to step into roles like ours someday, and giving them these opportunities to take some ownership and leadership has been great. Something else that we asked for when we were developing our courses was that whoever was leading the session, they create their slides. And then I have on our hub, I have a link to basically a spreadsheet with each session and the links to all the slides. So if a teacher can't come to a session, but they still really want to know about it, they still have the ability to go back and kind of look through that and see if that is something that can apply to them. And then we also asked the people who are teaching and leading those sessions to really focus in on just 1 or 2 very manageable bites, if you will, that they were going to focus on that day. And so for example, I have to staff all the time talking about time management. I don't know about you, but my Google Calendar is like what I focus my day with. And so I utilize it all the time. It's color coded, everything's in categories. I set reminders. I also use my email. I try to make the most of the time that I have. So I schedule emails and, I have things, rules and all these things. And I talk about that. And then I have teachers look at me like they have no idea what I'm talking about. And so that was actually the first session that I did this year. And while that may not seem as important, I had the most people at that session because so many of them had no idea some of the tools that they already had at their fingertips. And so just using things to work smarter, not harder, and make ourselves more efficient, manage our time better. So that was a very simple session. I did a session on formative assessment where I had a couple different teachers helping and leading and collaboratively with small groups. And the thing that I love that session in particular, a lot of teachers were there, and I have a lot of seasoned teachers, and I know that they use formative assessment every day. But I heard one of them say, I love these sessions because I love getting to share ideas with my colleagues. And throughout the school day, they don't necessarily have plans that line up. They get busy and they got to use this time for this or that. And it's really become kind of this 45 minutes, if you will, of rich conversation with teachers. When I'm the one leading the session, I try to really keep it to 15 or 20 minutes of a facilitated teach time. And then the rest of that time is for them to ask questions or to do it. I don't know about you all, but my learning style is I don't want someone to show me. I want to do it myself. And so I have allowed for that with the teachers. And it's a judgment-free zone. Everybody is at various levels of technology competency, and that's okay. But it's really been a delight to see teachers who know how to do something just readily sitting beside someone who's maybe struggling a little bit. And the other thing that I've really loved through the development of this is we're modeling what we want our classrooms to be. And as as the educational leader in the building, I want to model best practice. And I want my teachers to see that. And I love it because it gives me a chance to get, to teach as well. And it's really been an engaging opportunity for our staff. I've had a whole lot of really positive feedback. And again, with it being a completely voluntary opportunity, I really wasn't sure what was going to happen. I might only have one or two people show up, but every single week it's been consistent. The other thing that I love is there are things for new teachers. Um, you kind of feel like you're drinking from the fire hydrant at the beginning of school, whether you've taught before or not, when you're in a new building, new expectations, new ways of doing things, new colleagues. And we go over a whole lot of information at the beginning. And some of it, until they have to actually use it, it kind of gets put back in way, way, way long-term storage. And so some of the bite-sized PD has been geared a little bit more towards newer staff, and it gives them an opportunity to come back and say, okay, can we do that again? Can you show me how to do that again? Um, and actually give them the opportunity to practice that. So all of those things have been super positive. We've, again, I've had about 6 different people in addition to myself and my assistant principal who have been able to teach and lead sessions. And the other thing that I will say as far as sharing, not only do we put their slides there, we all also share a slide that takes attendance so that we're tracking that for them. And they seem to have really appreciated that we were kind of thinking out of the box for a way to meet the needs that they have, that they've expressed. And I think it's important for teachers to see and hear that we hear them. Like when they're asking for something and we figure out a way to meet that need. I feel like that's been a really positive thing for my building. Um, some of the other sessions that we've had in our list, everything from specific practical things that are a part of our student information system. We've tried to roll those out in a way to match up with what's going on in the season. For example, we have a facet in our fax system to do parent-teacher conference planning and to take notes and such. So we rolled that out several weeks before our all-day parent-teacher conference day. We use data sheets with our students where we're setting up goals in the classroom, whether it's math or reading or science, etc. And some teachers really struggle with the setup of that. And so we had a whole session where we were just helping everybody practically set that up. We've gotten into creation of interactive things like choice board on Google Slides, making very specific things that teachers have asked for in something like that. Other types of technology, classroom screen, quizzes, Cahoots, things like that that teachers use. I've had a lot of teachers interested in learning more about using tools like Canva. So I had a couple people that got on and put a couple different presentations like that together. Again, some formative assessment, some classroom management type strategies for some of our newer staff, and more. And really, the sky's the limit. It's really about what the needs of your teachers are, what things that you're looking to develop within your building, and I was thinking about this while Lou was speaking in the keynote, that as we look to shift, if you will, some of the things that are happening in education across the state, one person pointed out, we have to get ahead of that with our teachers. The word vibrant means different things to different people. So what's vibrant teaching mean in your school? What is that going to look like? And as you look to develop something like we have kind of the portrait of a learner here at our school, you have that at your school. What does that look like? And kind of the reminder of what each of those parts are, and even sometimes working that back into sessions with your teachers. Um, New teachers have certain needs, but seasoned teachers have different needs, and looking to how we can differentiate instruction for our teachers in the same way that we encourage them to differentiate instruction for our learners, I think is always a challenge, but also a very important part of our jobs as leaders in our buildings. Um, I am not someone who loves to talk and talk and talk when I teach, even students. So I like to facilitate and to share ideas. So I know it may be a little uncomfortable sometimes, but if you are willing, I put my email on there if anybody has questions. If you're willing, like, what is something that maybe you see that you could use something like this for, or have you done something like this already in your building that you would be willing to share with the bigger group?
Was just thinking, Carrie, for these principals, who are your teacher leaders and what do they have to contribute? Who's doing something that's different or unique or maybe ahead of the curve that they could um, tell everyone else about. So think of like those people.
Yes, that's who many of the ones I have are my teacher leadership team that are helping present and work.
And did you say you did it all on Wednesdays?
Yeah, that was just the afternoon that worked for us. So, just looking at the different clubs and things that meet, Wednesdays seems to be the one that fewest things are going on, and so that's what we picked. So after our school lets out at 3:30, so we usually aim for like 3:45 to 4:30, and we're done and everybody out by then. Are there topics that you see kind of coming to the top for your teachers? Do you guys have a lot of new staff, or are you more a good mix, more seasoned staff in your building?
I think this, as I think about it, I think it's a great idea that you've come up with, and I love the fact that it's just a short session instead of the long one, because I do think the overwhelming feeling happens a lot. I taught for 30 years, and I know I left some sessions feeling like I'll never get this done,
Yeah.
and but yeah, I think for my staff, instructional strategies, I've seen some people do some things that with a little tweaking, it could be used in another classroom,
Hmm.
but some people are just more creative with that kind of thing. So I think that's an easy way to lend that. It's a great idea you've come up with.
Thank you. Again, I feel like what I kept hearing from my teachers was I just don't feel like I have time to learn how to do something. So I wanted them to see that it's something that they could do, they could manage it, it could be done, and break it into smaller bite-sized chunks, if you will, so that they could not feel overwhelmed by it and not feel intimidated and actually have success. And I feel like, again, I always try to relate it back to it's the same thing when I'm teaching a new concept in a classroom. I'm gonna chunk it. I'm gonna make it into smaller pieces so that the students don't feel overwhelmed, and so that they also kind of have the experience of that successful the success of doing something and feeling like they can repeat it and do it again. And I've been really excited to hear the teachers, they'll come back and say, "Oh, I did this in my class this week," or "I've been really using this, and I'm so glad that we learned how to do that." So, but again, I think the biggest thing is there's voice and choice in it for them. We're not making them do it. It was a total voluntary thing. And I don't feel like I'm wasting my time because teachers are coming, and I feel like, because if I was preparing sessions and nobody's showing up on a Wednesday, that would kind of feel defeating. But we just really have let them kind of guide that, and it's been a really really good thing. I will say that there's one thing that we do every year with new teachers about halfway through the year, and so we did carve out like these first 5 or 6 weeks after Christmas, once they've kind of had their feet a little bit wet. And I have one of my teacher leaders that leads these sessions for them, and it's something a little bit more content based for us. It's more of a worldview type thing, and that has been a great opportunity because in the past we always tried to do that on a professional development day, but then that gave a challenge because they were the only ones that were doing it, and then we really didn't want to offer something else that we wanted them to be a part of. So this was a really easy way to slide in easier manageable sessions for them, and it also builds that cohort. A lot of the newer staff sometimes tend to stick together, and so it's a good cohort for them to share ideas and kind of build with each other in those sessions. And this was just such a great way to slide that right in and do it after school, and then not have to realign something on the bigger professional development that we have. So, any
Yeah, and
questions?
we did a AI session at the
Oh yeah.
career and technical principal. That's where I am. And so I did that. I did that kind of in a bite-sized session with my staff, and kind of gave extra credit for if they went back and used them in a class and invited me to see what they were doing. So that worked
I like
out real
that.
well.
That's great. It's a huge topic right now, so that's definitely applicable. I know that's something a lot of our teachers are asking lots of questions about and trying to dig into as well. So, good to know.
Carrie, we have a comment in the chat. It says, we've done this at a district level and with the tech department, but this is a great idea to build leadership and share knowledge within your building. I love your presentation. I think it goes so well with bite-sized training where they can monitor the progress of the training. Would you share what type of slides these are? And I was thinking the same thing. I love your slides.
Oh, okay. So that's in just in Google Slides. And if you've noticed, if you use Google Slides at all, I'm gonna go to that real quick. Let's see if I can share again. I just stopped my share, so I apologize. Okay, when you're in your Google Slides, if I can see this, when you go to slides, they have templates now.
Mm.
And that's a brand new thing. It just came out a little bit ago. And so it was just a template that they have. I think it was for like a book club or something like that. And so you have different book titles, and I just made it for what I wanted. But yeah, so there's some really neat ones. That's always been kind of my complaint about Google Slides was they didn't have very many offerings. And so I was always making my own or going out and finding something that I could get online. But they have made an upgrade here lately that has those. So yeah. And I agree what you're saying. Like, I think from a district standpoint, um, a lot of things come from the district office. But as you all know, every school in your district has its own culture and has its own heartbeat. And your teachers in this school are not exactly, and your students are not exactly the same makeup as this school that may be across town. And so it is a nice way to, again, build leadership within your own building, but also to try to really hone in on and meet the needs of the teachers that are actually in your building. So thank you. I appreciate that.
We have
Uh,
another comment here. It says, I love the teacher choice and considering what they would like to learn more about. We also use surveys in our district. I love that. The idea of surveying your staff and getting a general idea of what they want to know more about.
mhm. Yeah. And I know that's one more thing. It's like there's always one more thing. And but really at the beginning of school, I had a session in kind of one of our little in-service kickoffs where I just talked about the idea for this and the desire and what what I'd been getting as feedback over the past little bit and why we wanted to do this. And then I just had them fill it out right there. Because sometimes when we say, hey, we need everybody to fill this out, and it just gets lower and lower on the totem pole, especially at back to school. And so it gave them an opportunity to kind of talk with their um all of our faculty are in teams, and so they kind of talked a little bit in their teams even about some of the things that they would like to see. And again, I had categories and I had ideas for different learning sessions, but I also did give them an open-ended one to suggest something themselves. And so a few of those sounded really good, and we got a few that were kind of aligned enough that I felt like there was a need for those. And I'm excited because I feel like there's some things that we may recycle from this year to next year for new staff, but we'll have another opportunity to develop some new offerings as well. And then again, by housing those things on the little hub that we created, they can go back to them, because I know a lot of people, until they use it, they don't remember it. And having those screenshots, I tried to be careful to, especially if it's technology driven, to have screenshots of what they were doing and kind of explain it so then they could go back and do it themselves again. So that was really helpful. Thank you all. Any other questions or ideas you want to share?
Everyone's being pretty quiet.
I know it's early.
Yeah.
Everybody's still
think
falling out from
I would have
school.
loved to have attended your Google Calendar one. I need that one myself.
Yeah, it's very helpful. And I'm still learning. I think that's the other thing that's important for us as the leaders in our building, is to show that we're still learning things too. Really, to try to model the lifelong learner. And I would encourage you, if you do this, when other teachers are the ones leading, you go to the session too as a learner. Well, I'm happy to answer any questions if you want a message in the chat, or again, I had my email up on that slide. It's tigus@mytfca.org. And I'd be happy to share anything that we've used, or if you have any questions and when you want to try to do it.
I have a couple questions. I was just thinking, so you did this on Wednesdays.
Mhm.
How many different offerings would you have on those Wednesdays?
No, we only did one offering each Wednesday.
Okay, okay. And then it
And
was
so,
just a continuation of ideas.
yeah, so overall, I think there ends up being like 40 sessions or something across the school year. And so that, again, that's why I said if they did 8, to me, that was like a day, of professional development. And so
Yeah.
some of them have already passed that because they're coming to the ones that they really want to go to. But I felt like with them knowing, okay, these are all the sessions that we're going to have. And then, I have 4 kids. I understand the planning and all that goes into your life. So they could kind of highlight, okay, these are the ones that I really want to make sure that I get to go to. And then we've been firm to not change that and make sure that we stuck with that.
I love that.